Boxing is a very, very loved sport by many people. It's been around for decades, maybe even a century. It's been around for a long time, and some people make the claim that boxing is dead. They don't box like they used to in the old days. This new age of boxing is terrible. Boxing is no more. And they might be right. In fact, as the days go by, I'm pretty sure they are telling the absolute truth. And nothing has convinced me more of that than this entire Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. This is something that's been in the big news because, oh my gosh, Mike Tyson, he's coming back for a real fight against somebody, like a real boxing match. Ooh, Mike Tyson. And it's against the man with the most punchable face in the world, Jake Paul. The guy who still seems to live in the Team 10 era and just can't find his way out. This event has gotten a lot of people excited, but as each week and month goes by, it just seems to get worse and worse and worse. And recently, it's kind of reached rock bottom. Reason being is because Mike Tyson, on a flight, recently had a medical emergency because his ulcer began to flare up. And because of that, the fight that was originally scheduled for Netflix, of all places to be streamed, has been moved back from its original late July date. Oh, ooh, no. Whatever shall we do? And as of filming this, the date is up in the air. If they put a date out, I'll put it on the screen, but if they haven't, it's kind of up in the air. We don't know when they're gonna fight. We don't know when they're going to clash gloves and fight to the death. And while this might come as very sad and troubling news to a lot of people, I want you to just take a step back and look at the entire situation with wide open eyes. Because this fight just doesn't make any sense, and frankly, it's just so sad to see. And this is going to be a very opinionated, kind of factual, mostly opinionated video. But there needs to be some truth sprinkled a little bit here and there before people get too excited for this fight that might come up, might not come up. And that being that this is just not going to be a good fight. And I'm sorry, it's just not. Every single piece of evidence that I've seen so far, it's just not going to be a good fight. Because there's a lot of people out there saying that, oh, this is going to be like one of the greatest fights in boxing history. And it's just not. Because these are two people who at this point aren't even boxers. And before you freak out, I want to say something very, very clear. Mike Tyson is a monster. He is built out of pure titanium. He is decades older than me and can still probably snap me in two like a twig. He could go to sleep, astral project, and fight me while I am very much awake, and I would not be able to get a hit on him. Not only because he's astral projecting, because he's so fast. But despite that, it really doesn't take away from the fact that there's something wrong with this fight. There's two things wrong with this fight. Jake Paul's not a real boxer. Mike Tyson is far behind his prime. And if you want proof, let's look at his ulcer inflaming. Before I get to Mike Tyson, I just want to talk about Jake Paul, alright? Because there's this big thing, it's like, man, he has only lost one fight. You know, Jake Paul, he is a great fighter. And sure, he's gotten better over the years. I will give you that. In terms of fighting, he's gotten very, very good. The thing is that Jake Paul is notorious for picking and choosing his fights. He picks very, very selectively who he wants to fight and when. I mean, for instance, let's look at all the people that Jake Paul has fought in his lavish career. So he's fought Deji twice, and he won both, but these are YouTuber fights, and Deji wasn't exactly a challenge at that time. And Isan Gibb, he crab walked his entire way throughout that ring and then eventually lost balance and died. So those are two fights that weren't even really fights. Those were... You can't even call it professional. But okay, let's move away from the YouTubers. Let's get into the real athletes. Ooh, the fighters. And nothing says professional fight more than the Nate Robinson fight. Because holy crap, I remember watching that. And that was the same one where Mike Tyson fought in a little itty bitty match. Not too much, not too much, but you know, still a fight nonetheless. Slightly disappointing, sure. But we got the main event, which was arguably the Jake Paul fight. Not because it was a fight between warriors, it's because it was just the most silly thing I ever saw. And it's infamous because Nate Robinson didn't do anything. I don't even think he threw a single punch. He just jumped around the entire ring like a bunny rabbit and then eventually jumped to the wrong spot. He got hit clean in the chin and then died. Shock. And because of that, we got some really, really good videos like Andy's Coming, where all the toys fall down, and then you get the green screen video of Nate Robinson falling down. Good memes from that, but still, not even a fight. Oh, but that's when we get the real fighter. We get Ben Askren back in 2021, you know, a real who's who, you know, the UFC fighter. And sure, that's a little bit better than basketball, but you got to remember, Ben Askren's not even a boxer. His specialty was not fighting like this. His specialty was wrestling people to the ground. And what happened? He got his ass kicked, beat, punched. So not really a real fight. Now, to give him credit, he did have some better fights, like Tyrone Woodley that he fought twice, but again, that's probably the best fight that he got, because who did he move on to after that? Anderson Silva, and a UFC fighter that was way past his prime, 47 years old, shocker. And then he had other fights after that, some of them a little bit better, some of them a little bit worse. The point being, though, is that he has had a history of picking and choosing his opponents, so it's no surprise that he decided to fight Mike Tyson when he is no longer in his prime. You're not, how do I phrase this politely? You're not proving yourself a big bad by fighting a champion, a GOAT, mind you, the man, when he's well after his prime. I'm sorry, you're just not. Because even though, and if I've seen the videos of Mike Tyson training, he is in incredible shape. I mean, he's very muscular, he's very quick, he's still got the moves. Is he in his prime? He's definitely not in his prime anymore. But he's still got the moves, and he's still got the athleticism. So to say that it's gonna be, that it's like unfair, I'd say that's disingenuous. But that doesn't really change the fact that there's one thing that no amount of training can really help you with, and that's just age. He's just not the spring chicken that he used to be. And I know that, and again, he could probably kick my ass any day of the week while probably reading with one hand. It doesn't change the fact that this is kind of a scummy matchup. Because the big claim with Jake Paul is like, I'm changing the industry. Nobody has ever done boxing as good as me. I am the man. I am the best. And it's just, he's just not. If he was really the best, you know what he'd do? He'd put himself into the actual boxing bracket, let the company choose the fights for them, and don't go pick these people that are either retired or not boxers at all. Why don't you go into the thing and find yourself an opponent that is currently in their prime and currently boxing professionally? If you want to claim that you're a great professional boxer, go do that. But he's just not going to do that because he wants to go pick his targets the way that he wants to pick his targets. And that's by fighting people that are either retired or not boxers at all. And that's just it. That's just the thing. And that's why I really don't have any high hopes when it comes to this boxing match, if it ever comes, which at this point, I don't even know if it's gonna come. And I really do hope that Mike Tyson wins. He is the GOAT, and I really don't want to see him lose to the scumbag because he's claiming all these things that he's just not. And that's always been Jake Paul's thing. He's the problem child. He's the very controversial person. And by golly, that advertisement has worked wonders for him. But it doesn't really change the fact that this is just, it's just bad for the sport. And I've heard people talk about it over and over again. People who are like actual fans of boxing saying that this is, why are they doing this? This just looks bad for the sport. And I'm inclined to agree with them. And especially with the whole advertising that's been going on with this entire thing. It's a person that's retired, and it's a person that has had most of their fights be not professional boxers. And they're calling it like the biggest event in the decade, the biggest fight, and it's just not. So if you're really excited for this fight to happen, I want you to just take a step back and just think about it logically. With all the points that I've made so far, not a boxer, retired. Not a boxer, retired. Young, cocky, picking people very selectively, old. And in case you guys forgot, if we need to bring it back to the beginning of the video, Mike Tyson's ulcer became inflamed because he's got ulcer problems. So he's not exactly 100%. All in all, I was very excited for this fight. I'm not gonna lie to you, but at this point, all those thoughts of I can't wait for this fight have just dissipated like a fart in the wind. I really don't think that this is gonna be a good fight. Having said that, though, who knows? Maybe it's incredible. Maybe Mike Tyson his eyes start to glow white, and then fire starts to erupt within him, and then his hair starts to grow, and he becomes a Super Saiyan, then just starts beating the crap out of Jake Paul. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be very similar to the last Mike Tyson fight, which really wasn't even a fight. But at the end of the day, we're just going to have to wait until this fight happens, if it even happens. But that's it for me today. There's an airplane going overhead. It might be Mike Tyson. He might be coming for me. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, if indeed you still are. My name is Brockster, and I bid you all adieu.